now 7:02, and I am reconvening to open session and calling to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Indian Prairie School District 204 on Monday, March 8th, 2021. Jeannie, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Peel.
Here.
Mr. Rising.
Here.
Ms. Deming.
Present.
Ms. Grover.
Here.
Ms. Donahue.
Here.
Mr. Razak.
Here.
Mr. Karubis.
Here. We have a quorum. Mr. Rising, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we're moving on to some board salutes. Ms. Grover.
District 204 students named Presidential Scholar candidates. The board salutes 12 District 204 students who were recently named 2021 U.S. Presidential Scholar candidates. Congratulations to the following Neuqua Valley students: Ethan Covington, Cassandra Horn, Rohan Jaiswal, George Liu, Nishikar Paruchuri, Nihal Shivanganari, Lauren Witry, Helen Zhao, and Raymond Zhao. And congratulations to Satvik Nalagotla, Rishi Raghavapudi, and Advik Reddy Sanampudi from Metea Valley. Inclusion in the U.S. Presidential Scholars Program is one of the highest honors bestowed upon graduating high school seniors. Scholars are selected on the basis of superior academic and artistic achievements, leadership qualities, strong character, and involvement in the community and school activities. Congratulations to all 12 of these students on their stellar achievement.
Thank you. Ms. Peel?
The National Merit Scholarship Corporation announced 43 District 204 seniors have advanced to finalist standing into 2021 National Merit Scholarship Program. There are 9 students from Metea Valley, 23 students from Neuqua Valley, and 11 students from Waubonsie Valley. These students were selected for their exceptional academic promise and are continuing in the competition for National Merit Scholarships awarded this spring. We congratulate each student on this outstanding accomplishment and wish them luck as they move forward in the competition.
Thank you. Mr. Rising?
The board salutes the 44 District 204 students who were recently designated as all-state musicians by the Illinois Music Education Association. These students were selected after submitting audition material along with thousands of students from across Illinois. There were 14 students from Metea Valley, 19 from Neuqua Valley, and 11 students from Waubonsie Valley. Congratulations to all on this wonderful accomplishment.
Thank you. It is now time for the Student Representative Report by Brooke Pegues from Metea Valley. Please take the mic.
Good evening. My name is Brooke Pegues, and I am the Class of 2021 Executive Board Representative for MV Student Government. I'm very excited to join you all tonight. We started surveillance testing last week, and it's going well. Thank you to all of our Mustangs for your cooperation. Last week, we celebrated Respect Week with daily quotes of respect and promoting inclusion in our classrooms and lives. March 1st and 2nd, the PTSA held a handprint event for our seniors, and the banner will be continued in April at Metea Valley. Mustang Comedy is hosting a live webinar with stand-up and improv on March 12th. Break a leg to all of our talented Mustangs. Metea would like to congratulate Sydney Lewis for bowling a perfect 300 at the DVC matchup. Good job, Sydney. Both varsity and JV dance advanced to IDTA state, and our cheer team is currently competing in sectionals. Congratulations to our hardworking athletes. Boys swim and dive will compete in conference tournaments this week. Good luck to our swimmers. That is all I have for the March board report. Thanks, everyone, and until next time, go Mustangs.
One thing, Brooke, can you introduce your replacement?
Yes, this right here is Saad. He will be taking over for me at the next board report. At the April meeting, he will be doing the report fully.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank you.
Thank you.
It is now time for public for non-agenda. Oh, I forgot.
Superintendent update?
And Mr. Razak. I'm just breezing through this. We'll do our public comment. It is now time for public comment on non-agenda items. Looking at the sign-up sheets, we have, looks like some confusion as to non-agenda and agenda items. I'm going to exercise some discretion and run those both together. Tonight, there is no return to school reopening plans on the agenda. So I'm going to consider that as a non-agenda item. And I will start with the non-agenda item list first. Shannon Adcock, please take the mic. Let me read the comments first, please. Let me read the rules here first. 30 minutes is allowed for public comment, and each person is limited to 3 minutes. When addressing the board, we ask that you respect the confidentiality and safety of our students and school district personnel. We also ask that those addressing the board be cognizant that this is an open meeting and is available to all age groups, and as such, ask that you consider who the audience members are this evening and keep comments age appropriate. Public comment represents the voice and opinion of the speaker. There will be no feedback from the board members during the meeting, but follow-up will be provided by an administrator as appropriate. Ms. Adcock.
Good evening. My name is Shannon Adcock, candidate for this Indian Prairie School Board. On behalf of 9 area school districts, I want to cordially invite all of you board members, Superintendent Talley, educators, staff, and all of our 204 community to an event happening this Sunday, March 14th at 11 a.m. in support of our students. This event is called Unite for the Kids and will take place at the Free Speech Pavilion at the Naperville Riverwalk. It's a family-friendly event to show support for our area students. We hope to see you there this Sunday at 11 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker this evening is Donna Brooke. Is Donna Brooke here to speak? Okay, moving on. Donna, if you show up or want to speak, raise your hand, please. The next public speaker is Marion Banks. Thank you.
Keep our mask on, right? Okay. I hope I can read it. I'm gonna put my glasses on. Okay. Good evening, Dr. Talley and the board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. After weeks of sitting at home, listening to public comment, I felt obligated to come out tonight and express my humble apologies to the board and to show my support and gratitude for all that you have done and continue to do for the best interest of all students and families in District 204. It has been extremely frustrating, disappointing, and baffling to witness the behavior and hurtful comments of some trying to bully and threaten the board into making rash decisions. It is just unacceptable. Parents are supposed to set the example of how to resolve conflict, how to compose yourself when expressing your feelings, how to be respectful, but the negative sentiments shared over the last few board meetings have been appalling and left many wondering why such division and negativity in our community when we all want the same for our children. As parents in the district, we have every right to exercise our voice and concern, but when that advocacy turns rude, disrespectful, and threatening, that is a problem. I do not want the board thinking or feeling that everyone shares those sentiments. We do not. There are 28,500 students in this district, and many of the parents understand the complexities that this situation presents. We logically understand that it takes time. We know how hard the individual principals and schools are working to get kids back in school. They want the same thing we do, but it must be executed in the safest way possible for all. Ultimately, the decisions being made should not be taken lightly or rushed. There has always been plans to return to school since July. We have always been informed that the plans can and will be adjusted as needed, following the local and state guidelines as well as the CDC and health experts. And they are just that, guidelines. We must do what is best for our district and stop comparing ourselves to what others are doing. We all have a voice. We are all entitled to our own personal theories and opinions, but in the end, we must work together. Instead of constantly belittling the board, how refreshing would it be for the board members to receive an email with suggestions or thoughtful ideas instead of demanding that they do certain things? Maybe we can send some encouraging words and show some support. So tonight, I will start by applauding the board by staying firm in your decisions for all families. Applaud your long hours, your weekly meetings, the daily research that has consumed your life for the last year. We all have had to endure the difficulties of not having our kids in school. I have a junior athlete that has struggled. I too have been frustrated. I want my daughter back in school 4 or 5 days a week as well, but I also want others to feel safe. I want people to show empathy and ultimately come together as the great community we all chose to be a part of and to set the example for others of how to effectively work as one. It is my hope and prayer that the board stay diligent and focused on the work that you are doing. Thank you for your time tonight, and God bless you all.
Thank you. The next speaker is AJ Collier. I've been informed that I butchered your name.
That's okay. All right. Dr. Talley, administrators, and members of the Board of Education. I've been a member of this community for 30 years and a member of the school community for over 16 years with my 3 children. I am sincerely grateful to the teachers and staff at Waubonsie that have impacted their lives. And right now, I'm extremely disheartened by some of the comments from this microphone over the last few board meetings. Many of the views expressed from this microphone are antithetical to the concept of community, the values that we have in this district, and even to the idea of education itself. One of the values that I know is espoused in almost all of our school buildings is respect. Respect and positive relationships and the like. And we don't tolerate bullying in schools from our students. Well, neither is it okay from adults. It's not okay, the bullying that has been spewing from this microphone. My heart goes out to parents struggling with remote learning. I know it's challenging. I'm one, actually. And I very much appreciate the teachers that have gone above and beyond the call of duty. I hear your challenges with hybrid. Thank you so much. And thank you also to our tutoring program leaders and other program leaders. I know that you're working hard and trying desperately to re-engage with the students. Obviously, everyone wants a return to normalcy. That's not the question. How we respond in the face of adversity is. I respect that the administration and the board are taking a measured approach, and I respect those who understand the need for you to do so in the interest of everyone. I applaud you for staying focused despite this bullying, and I applaud that you are being guided by science. We teach science. We believe in science. We promote STEM. It is important to listen to multiple reliable sources and have multiple data points before drawing your conclusions. Thank you for being guided by the CDC and the Illinois Department of Health and the Northwestern data. Guidelines are created so that we can be guided by them. Of course you could ignore them and have students shoulder to shoulder with no mask, but that is not what we want you to do. We respect your diligence and respect in this educational system that you are being guided by science and experts. So thank you for what you are doing in the midst of all of these challenges for the good of all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Shelly Menendez.
Because 3 minutes is never enough. One of America's most beloved teachers taught remotely, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers famously tells us that when he would talk to his mother about the scary things in the news, she told him, "Look for the helpers." For nearly a year now, we've been impacted by a deadly and contagious virus, and in the face of the scary news, our community has been full of helpers. We find the helpers sitting at the desks in the CEC making difficult decisions. We find helpers sitting as board members making sound decisions based on facts and logic, despite or in spite of the things that they have to endure. We find the helpers maintaining what little energy and sanity they have left as they deliver instruction to both masked children at schools and on computers. We find the helpers making phone calls home to check in on families. We find the helpers creatively assisting and assessing our student learning in unfamiliar ways. We find the helpers cleaning our buildings to make our surfaces safe to sustain teaching and learning. We find the helpers, both little and big, in the classrooms, online, and engaged in learning and doing their part, even though they miss their friends. We find helpers in our parents who have made great sacrifices themselves and have done it for the greater good. We find the helpers in those who have worked hard to vaccinate and in those who have been vaccinated. We find helpers in our leadership. Dr. Talley, I especially want to thank you for helping us navigate this time. Transitioning to a new community and a role as a new leader in a successful school district is already incredibly demanding. However, doing so amidst a global pandemic, social tensions, and political polarization, you have done this with grace, poise, kindness, courage, and a focus on making our schools as safe as possible for anybody and everyone. In short, we find the helpers helping, offering support as they can, understanding that nothing about this year was ever going to be normal, trusting that the people who have chosen to dedicate their lives to serving the needs of our community's children will have the best interests of children in mind in every decision, and offering grace, knowing that this year cannot be ideal. But in face of challenge, our community, our educators, our children have carried on with love, care, and hope for the end of all of this. I believe that we are a strong, gracious community. We should be celebrating this. Thank you to everyone who has worked together to tackle the amazing task of educating our children in a way that we could have never imagined. I just want to say these are not my words. I'm doing this on behalf of a parent who just didn't feel comfortable coming tonight. So I can't take credit for them, but I wholeheartedly agree with everything this person had to say.
Thank you. The next speaker is Janice Spencer.
Good evening, Dr. Talley and the distinguished board. As introduced, I'm Shanice Spencer. I'm the mother of 2 children. My daughter is a 6th grade Project Aero student at Hill Middle School, and my son is a senior student athlete here at the revered and esteemed Metea Valley High School. Go Mustangs. We've been in the district since my son started kindergarten at Kalishaw. And Dr. Talley, we were thrilled to meet you at the district's meet and greet. We were and still are excited about the extraordinarily impressive experience that you bring to our school district, which was already leading the charge in seeking and achieving excellence. My children and many others flourish here, and I'm thankful that even now my children continue to thrive. My family's experiences with 204, both past and present, including the current handling of the response to the pandemic, has strengthened our confidence in the superintendent, the elected school board, and the faculty of 204. We support you, and we're grateful for the extraordinary care and consideration that you've shown while faced with making seemingly impossible decisions concerning our children. I also wish to specifically commend our teachers. I oftentimes listen in on my kids' Zoom classes, and I'm in awe of all that they continue to do to support our kids. During parent-teacher conferences, their compassion and love for their job continues to shine through, and we can't forget how incredibly difficult this is for them too. I'm disheartened and frankly disgusted by some of the vitriolic attacks that I've seen and heard against our superintendent, sitting school board members, and district staff. Bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, and intimidation are listed as Tier 3 and Tier 4 levels of misconduct in the student handbook. Based on the completely inappropriate actions of some, it appears that we might need a parent handbook. It's unfathomable that this is the kind of behavior that one would deem acceptable to model for their children. I was appalled to learn that there are even current school board candidates who've aligned themselves with those individuals and groups. Everyone, please do your homework before you vote. The truth is just a Google or social media search away. We all don't have to agree on everything, but we must have the capacity to demonstrate civility and treat each other respectfully. It goes without saying that both of my children wish to be in the school building, and I share their wish. These are such pivotal academic years for both of them. We've made the incredibly difficult decision, however, to remain remote for the entire academic year. Again, my son's senior year. I respect and trust every parent's decision to do what they feel is best for their family. And I also respect and trust the decisions that the school board makes on behalf of our families. I know that you don't take them lightly. I implore you to continue to be pragmatic and thoughtful in your approach, and to be unwavering and steadfast in your adherence to the guidance of the experts. As an institution of education, how can any logical person expect you to ignore the science? Furthermore, how could we trust you if you don't? Thank you. My family continues to keep you and the entire school district in our prayers.
Thank you. The next speaker is Heath Gerdes.
Good evening. My name is Heath Gerdes, and I've been a resident of Naperville in District 204 for 20 years. My wife and I have 3 children. This past year has been difficult for all of us. Working from home, remote education, and all the other adjustments we've had to adapt to. One of the most pleasant surprises of the past year has been the quality and commitment we've seen from our sons' teachers in school. Like many of you, I'm sure one of the main reasons we moved to District 204 was for the educational opportunities available to our children. The schools and teachers in this district are very well regarded across both Illinois and the country. My children have experienced public school education vastly different than my own experiences. The opportunities afforded our children are amazing and are supported by outstanding educators. My family's experienced the entire educational spectrum available in 204, from Project Arrow and AP classes to a struggling child with an IEP. The teachers and staff have been tremendously supportive of all my children, no matter their abilities. Without the help of the teachers and staff, we would have struggled for a much longer period of time in diagnosing my son's needs. The support he has received from his teachers and aides has been outstanding. With their help, he has made tremendous strides in his schooling. Not only have they supported him during in-person school, but their commitment to keeping him involved during the remote learning sessions has been even better. They've taken a difficult situation and made it both engaging and fun. So thanks once again to the teachers and staff of District 204. We appreciate all the efforts that have been made to keep our children safe and well educated. Your commitment to excellence has made our lives a little brighter over the past year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Harish Pai.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Talley. My name is Harish Pai. Along with my wife, I'm a resident of the district for 21 years. Our 2 sons, Nachi and Neil, are products, did their entire schooling in our district, graduated from NEQA class of 2013 and 2019. They've been immensely successful since their graduation from high school, and a lot of it is owed to their presence from this district. We're also small business owners in the community. We have a math tutoring center, Mathnasium, which we've been operating for 10 years. And also we've been involved in several other community organizations, specifically the Indian Prairie Education Fund, for whom we have raised funds as charity runners and also as corporate sponsors for the Naperville Marathon since 2014. I want to take this time tonight to commend the board and Dr. Talley on the tremendous job you guys have done in handling this unprecedented challenge with this pandemic. It has been an immensely challenging time. In my view, you guys took the right decision, decisive steps with one primary objective: keeping everyone healthy and safe, following CDC guidelines for preventing the spread of the virus. Everything else, including the educational, academic, and emotional needs of our children, were put second, and that was the right thing to do at this time. These steps that the district took were firm and decisive, and the conservative wait-and-see approach so that risk was minimized to the general public. Indeed, we will have some short-term fallout, no doubt. Our kids are going to struggle, especially the ones who are closer to graduation, but those things can be dealt with later. There really is no other choice right now. You know, our lives have been disrupted, not just school. Everything has been pretty much changed by this pandemic. But if we all stay together, we'll be able to get through this time and deal with the consequences once things are back to normal. Our district has always faced a lot of challenges because of its diversity and size. Whether it was the funding of the new school, or the ensuing redistricting that occurred, or the current pandemic, the track record of the decisions taken by this board has always been consistent. You've always considered the entire picture, what is good for the whole district, what is good in the long term, rather than what is, rather than the short-term noise, and what is going to what is going to help in the short term. To that end, the public animosity that we've seen from some of the parents towards you and you, Dr. Talley, and the board has been both unfortunate and unwelcome. We should all be supporting you in your decisions until the public health crisis is over and the guidelines allow for a full return to normalcy. Thanks a lot for what you do, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Colin Singer. And
Hi, my name's Colin Singer, and I'm a 7th grader in the PA program at Gregory Middle School. First, I'd like to talk about the fact that this award-winning district took until late January to bring us back 2 days a week. As well as that, my 5th grade brother was in school for 5 hours a week. Me and my peers have been proven to not spread the virus nearly as much and are significantly less affected. Also, you seem to be very relentless about the 6-foot rule, which, if you didn't know, is actually recommended if you do not have masks on. I walk into school trying to talk to my friends, which I hang out with almost every day outside of school, and I can't even be near them. I have a friend who lives in Texas, and they're in school full-time, no 6-foot rule, a lunch break, teachers all there, kids all there, and though they're supposed to wear masks, the teachers are lenient. He says that few people have caught COVID, which could have been from outside of school as well, and none of them have died or gotten seriously sick. When I compare the work you guys are doing compared to them, it makes you look like a joke. Back in the last quarter of in-person school when I was in 6th grade, I had no problem with school and enjoyed my classes. I was an A student and got my work done. This mindset that you've put into kids is not okay. If I could give you some advice as a kid, I would tell you that if you give a kid a loophole, they will take it. There are thousands of apps, websites, and ways to cheat, which luckily I haven't fallen short of. But I know my friends have. I was in the car with one of my friends when he was explaining why he chose the remote schedule over hybrid. He said it was easier. If this is the mindset you want to be putting into kids, great job, you have won the most pathetic district award. Now, let me read my grades from last quarter in full in person versus last quarter of this year. While in person, I had all A's and a B+, one of those A's being a 99 in science. Last quarter, I had a C and 3 B's. Coincidence? I think not. Now, I will admit that I could have put more effort into my work. However, the reason I couldn't find myself happy with school was because I wasn't seeing teachers, my friends, or just even getting enough sleep because I was worried about you guys sending us back to remote learning. And not to mention the fact that I'm sitting behind a computer screen and you expect me to become successful this way? Again, it almost seems like a joke. Also, for those of you who don't know, teachers have the option to not go to school, meaning I see their face on a whiteboard while sitting in class. If you can't tell, it's ridiculous. All that I'm asking for is a 5-day week program, maybe with no 6 feet apart rule, and a lunch break, and you, Dr. Talley, and this board with no medical degrees out of any of you cannot give me that. If teachers and kids are so scared of the virus, stay home or take a leave of absence. My teacher aide for classes where my teacher is on the whiteboard is an 80-year-old man who fought in Vietnam. He proves that you should not live in fear because he is vulnerable to COVID and still chooses to help out us as kids growing up. If you cannot take risks, you cannot get benefits. And right now, you're not benefiting us at all. If we cannot be in school because of a virus with a 99% survival rate for the average American, then according to that logic, you should also stop driving cars because for all you know, you get in a car crash. Also, make sure to stop eating. You might choke. Driving and eating are both essential, and so is school. So let's see what this board can do to get us to my goal. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ryan Singer.
Hi, my name is Ryan Singer. I have a 5th and 7th grader. That's my son. I'd like to remind you I spoke before this board on February 8th. My husband spoke on the 22nd. Neither of us have received any communication or response from you as you say you provide. Which brings me to my first point. I recently watched a video of Dr. Talley interviewing in Seattle for their superintendent position. Your priority, you said, was to build a community partnership, to engage with the people, not to the people. You said a leader can't do it himself. It's not supposed to be the Adrian school system, your words. Somewhere in the past few years, either your entire vision has changed or you were lying. In such an unprecedented time for our schools with all the challenges faced, you'd think that collaboration would be more important than ever. You have failed to engage with us and even have an open platform. For months, you have continued to ignore at least half this community and what is best for our kids. You have ignored science, instead hiding behind a couple of recommendations, which are just that. They are guidelines, not law. In particular, the 6-foot distancing, which schools that are back full-time have amended to 3 feet. I'm ecstatic also that sports have begun, but where's the 6 feet there? For that, we can bend the rules, but not for our kids at a desk in school. It's absurd. One recommendation you've chosen to ignore, though, is the one that says schools should have a committee set up to reopen that include parents and doctors of the community. So clearly you don't want to engage with us in this process. Instead, we have 3 minutes at these meetings to air our grievances to which you don't even respond. Secondly, I'd like to bring up another point you made in that interview. You said that educators are performing rocket science and that no one else can do their job. We're not qualified. I 100% agree. I am not a teacher, I am not certified to do the job, and therefore I am failing my kids. Don't pretend that this remote or this awful hybrid system is equal to a traditional school day, because it's not. Thirdly, I'd like to respond to you, Mr. Rising, in regards to the rambling lecture you gave us at the last meeting that went way beyond 3 minutes. You said we should be kissing the teachers' butts for all they have done. Not once have those of us that are advocating for our kids to go back to full-time school faulted the teachers. No, for that, we rest the blame squarely on this board and superintendent's shoulders. We realize that teachers' jobs this past year have been harder than ever. You've patted yourself on the back for the progress the district has made. Let me remind you, it took you a year to bring our kids back 2 partial days a week. Not even a half day for elementary, although you keep insisting on calling it that. That's abysmal. In any other industry, you'd be fired or out of business. Every week, districts around us are announcing plans for students to come back full-time in the coming days and weeks. It's beyond disappointing that you seem to have written off the remainder of this year, that you failed to see the value that 2 months of full in-person learning could provide. I realize you all are volunteers, but make no mistake, you have a job to do, and so far you have all failed miserably. We are at the point where there are only 2 options, full-time in-person or full-time remote.
Thank you. The next speaker is Brady Ketza.
Hi, I am Braden Ketza. Last week, my teacher told me we're going to school for 4 days, but still for 2 hours. That's still not enough hours for me. You got to let kids go back to school they're asking for when the teacher does not. Parents are exhausted with their kids asking for help when the teacher doesn't explain the directions. You've got to let kids go back to school. I feel sad because I only see my teacher for 2 hours. 2 hours? I want to see my teacher more hours. I really want to go to school full time. Today I went to school for 3 hours, but I only school for 2 hours. Why can't I go 3 then 2? Thank you.
Thank you. That completes public comment, although it is a little late. Mr. Razak, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to speak?
So just briefly, I apologize for not being at the meeting in person this evening. I'm currently out of town caring for a family member. I hope to rejoin our meeting in person soon. Because I'm not present, you have noted that Mr. Karubis is presiding over tonight's meeting. So thank you for your indulgence.
The next item on the agenda is the Superintendent Report. Dr. Talley.
Thank you, Mr. Karubis, members of the Board of Ed and the Indian Prairie Community. March is National Women in History Month. In 1987, Congress first declared March as Women in History Month in an effort to celebrate the wonderful contributions women have made to American society. Women such as Claire Barton, who founded the American Red Cross, artist Georgia O'Keeffe, who helped birth American modernism, mathematician Katherine Johnson, whose work allowed us to orbit the Earth and eventually land on the moon, or more recently, Sarah Thomas, who was the first woman to referee a Super Bowl just a month ago, have all had an impact on our people, our country, and our world. Our schools celebrate National History Month this month and are doing that in a variety of ways. In holding with past practices, we will not have school on April 6th, Election Day, but we will be fully remote on April 6th because of, in the past, Indian Prairie has been closed on that day for safety reasons. This year, we have 22 schools that will be used for polling places for the elections. Many of those polling places will take place in our gyms. Because we have moved several of our classrooms to gyms in our elementary schools to accommodate the larger classes, now that we have combined groups A and B, we can no longer stay open for in-person learning, and so therefore we'll be fully remote on April the 6th. We have had voluntary COVID-19 surveillance testing for several weeks. Out of approximately 2,000 tests given, we have had only 2 positive results. Those people were informed and were required to get a diagnostic test to confirm or refute the positive surveillance results. We will continue with the voluntary surveillance testing through spring break. Tomorrow, we will start having our elementary students return for 4 days of in-person instruction for those who wish to have in-person. In the time we have announced this move, we had approximately 1,200 students request the move, and we were able to honor close to 1,100. We had 7 students who were moved to another school. Starting the week of March 22nd, the high schools will start their 4-day-a-week plan. At the high school level, we had approximately 600 students moving from remote to in-person. We will now have approximately 4,700 students at the high school level attending in person. And the middle school will start their 4-day in-person learning on April 7th. They are starting that day to coincide with the start of the 4th quarter and the change in encore classes. We will have approximately 500 students move from remote to in-person, with middle school now having approximately 3,200 students attending in person. Though the counts are not final yet, we will have approximately 50% of our children remote and approximately 50% will be in person after the moves. Before the moves, we were at approximately 56% remote and 44% in person. I want to thank all the principals for their creative approaches to combining our A and B cohorts. They know their buildings, and they were the ones working with their direct supervisors who led the way in determining the how and the what of the plan. I want to thank our teachers for the work with the school administration in creating the plans we will be using. Teachers made suggestions about spaces that could be used. Teachers are being displaced so that we can use larger rooms, including music rooms, gyms, and library media centers. When I have been in some schools where this will take place, the teacher said it just made sense. I want to thank all support staff for helping with the logistical work that needed to be done, from taking out coat racks in rooms to make them bigger, to moving furniture, for covering classes when teachers are out. Finally, everyone is very excited about what will start tomorrow. People are anxious, yes, but that's to be expected. Everyone is also very excited. I was at Bilta and Kindle on Friday, and staff building excited to see the children. Finally, Mr. Karubas, at this time, I would like to ask the board to approve the new Executive Director of Communications candidate, Ms. Lisa Berry. Ms. Berry is currently the Assistant Director, Community Relations for Indian Prairie School District. Ms. Berry was one of more than 50 candidates for the position and rose through the interview process. She is very much part of our community, involved in various civic organizations, and has done an exemplary job with the school district, having led the work on our parent universities and our Engage 204 initiative. I ask the board to approve this candidate, and at this time, I will turn the meeting back to you, Mr. Karubas.
Before requesting a motion, I'd like to comment in response to the polling place. We have actively campaigned through the Illinois Association of School Boards to remove the requirement that schools act as polling places. It's not a decision we get to make. It's made by the local elected offices. If they ask us, we have to do it. And so that in this time, it takes up the space that we're trying to use and invites the public to use our buildings. And we've taken steps to minimize the interaction over the years for security reasons. We've taken steps to reduce attendance by closing. But once again, the school is impacted by a decision that is not ours. We have actively campaigned to try to change that and have not been successful. So moving on to the more important agenda item, I need a motion to approve Lisa Berry as Executive Director of Communication Services.
Make a motion that the Board of Education approve Lisa Berry as the Executive Director of Communication Services as presented.
Any discussion?
Clarification, this is because our current Executive Director of Communications is retiring at the end of this year, and this is a replacement for her, correct?
That is correct. Okay. Jeannie, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rising.
Yes.
Ms. Donahue. Yes. Ms. Grover.
Yes.
Mr. Karubas.
Yes.
Mr. Razak.
Aye.
Ms. Peel.
Aye.
Ms. Deming.
Aye.
Motion passes. Is Ms. Berry in the house?
I think she is, yes.
Welcome. Would you like to take the mic and say a few words? All right. Next, we move on to the consent agenda items. I need a motion to approve consent agenda items E through H.
I move that the board approve consent agenda items E through H as provided.
Second, this is Kathy.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Jeannie, will you call the roll?
Ms. Deming?
Aye.
Ms. Peel?
Aye.
Mr. Rising? Mr. Karubis?
Yes.
Ms. Grover?
Yes.
Mr. Razak?
Aye.
Ms. Donahue?
Motion passes. Next, we move on to the discussion item section of our agenda. We are going to have a discussion on student services update.
Mr. Karubis?
Yeah.
Do we have any public comment for agenda items?
I put them together.
Oh, you put them together, okay.
Yeah, thanks. I could use all the checks and balances, though.
Good check, Ms. Grover.
All right, the floor is yours. Thank you.
That would help.
Good evening, Dr. Talley, board members, and community of District 204. Thank you for the opportunity to present you with information on the work of the Student Services Department. This presentation aligns with Board Policy 6120. If you will recall, the last update was in March of 2020, right before the move to remote learning. This evening, I am joined by Sally Osborne and Kim Maloney, who will outline the services offered within the Prairie Children Preschool and the STEPS program. The purpose of tonight's presentation is threefold: to provide an update on programming changes since March of 2020, to outline the ways that students with special needs are learning during the pandemic, and to identify the future goals of the Student Services Department. Since March of 2020, the requirements under state and federal law for procedural compliance and timelines have not been waived in any fashion or even given a level of flexibility. Our teachers have worked tirelessly to maintain legal requirements such as evaluations, reevaluations, progress monitoring, and annual reviews. In addition to the IEP, teachers developed an individualized remote learning plan for each student to outline the provision of a free, appropriate public education during this time. Our related service providers were also hard at work providing services, both remote and in person, to our students. In addition, they participated in the development of the individual remote learning plans, conducted evaluations, wrote reports, and progress monitored on IEP goals and objectives. And as you are aware, our nursing staff reported to the buildings on August 12th and have been a consistent presence for navigating safety precautions. They brought students in for their vision and hearing screenings and completed the mandated documentation regarding compliance with immunizations. Our extended school year for 2020 was exclusively done remotely, with over 350 students participating. The focus of ESY is to maintain skills and continue the level of service, both instructionally and through related services. ESY also afforded our students the ability to stay connected to District 204 staff during a summer that was unlike any other in their history. In the fall of 2020, students were brought in on a case-by-case basis to address deficit areas. Initially, this was done on an individual basis, and then small groups were brought in. Students that had significant challenges were prioritized for this purpose. Following the adaptive pause in the late fall, early winter, students were again brought in to work on areas identified in their remote learning plans. The parent support during this time has been robust and targeted. We have district support team members who have connected with families to both educate and troubleshoot issues with students' assistive technology devices. We also have board-certified behavior analysts who have connected with families to address behavioral challenges, including such issues as increasing tolerance for virtual learning and increased tolerance for mask wearing and other safety precautions. At the high school level, our mental health coordinators have been connecting with families and students to monitor the health of some of our at-risk and special needs students. Our wraparound provider has also been accessed for virtual home support. Finally, the referral GPS system has been particularly helpful at helping our staff assist parents with mental health providers that are available and meet their needs related to issues, insurance, location, and language. Sally Osborne will now outline programming at Prairie Children's Preschool.
Good evening, board members and Superintendent Talley. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the journey of preschool. As you can see on this slide, in the spring and the fall, like the rest of the district, the preschool was fully remote. We were providing remote learning packets to families, and so that was a little different. These remote learning packets were really our primary method of instruction, and these packets and the materials in it are aligned with the Illinois Early Learning Development Standards. Yep, no problem. So the packets that we had were aligned with the Illinois Early Learning and Development Standards. Our remote learning packets had a parent plan as well as daily activities to support students in their learning at home. We also, in the fall and in the spring, we were doing weekly meetings between staff and families via Zoom for support, instruction, and coaching. I really wanted to give you just a little bit more detail about our journey. In November 2020, we brought in 171 students in person. We were part of the pilot program, but we also went a couple of weeks longer, so we had students in person for 4 weeks until our metrics increased and we took the adaptive pause. The week of January 18th, we returned to in-person instruction 2 half-days per week. And then as it's on the slide right here, on February 15th, we had 232 students in person and 217 remote students. Beginning the week of March 16th, we are increasing our student attendance days. So for our students who attend in our self-contained classrooms, these students will attend 4 half-days per week. And for students who attend in our blended classroom, these students will attend 3 half-days per week. As of March 1st, we had 245 in-person learners and 250 remote learners. And these numbers include students at our main campus, at the Graham Elementary School, our 3 Title I programs, as well as students who participate in our walk-in speech services. The other piece of information that I wanted to share with you is that when we sent out our survey and gathered interest from parents about their interest in having their students return in person, we had 38 parents who are interested in having their students return in person. And at this point, we are thinking that we'll be able to accommodate that number, and we're working on our class list right now. So that's just a little bit about the preschool and the journey that we have been in. So thank you for the opportunity to share the information about the preschool.
Kim Maloney will now outline programming at STEPS.
Good evening, respected board members. Dr. Talley, thank you for having me. STEP students began coming back into the building on September 15th. We started out having 16 STEP students, and we gradually increased that number weekly. Prior to the pause, we had 48 STEP students in the building. We will have on March 22nd, we will have 59 STEP students coming into the building. We will have 43 students continuing with remote learning. 17 of those STEP students will be having or will continue to have paid jobs out in our community. We also changed up a little bit of our in-work training program due to the fact we couldn't get out as much into the community with the guidelines that have been taking place in the community. We were very fortunate to be able to take over the district shredding program, bringing it to us. So we were able to have our students do shredding. We were working with Ron Johnson, doing some of the food service responsibilities. We are now 5,026 assembled kits for the COVID assembly kit for the district. I do have the numbers here. We've been doing that for the past 5 weeks, 4 days a week, 90 minutes a day, 26 student workers. Alongside of that, 3 times a week, we run 4 routes to 33 buildings. We have 4 bus drivers that do that for us, 4 job coaches, and 8 student workers. I'm very, very proud of our students who are doing that, and I'm proud of our remote learners because they're continuing our micro business, having bags that our TAs and staff members through our vocational coordinators have put together where our kids can continue to put together things and items that we're selling through Anderson's bookstore downtown, Naperville, as well as lanyards that many of us wear across the district, magnets. I'm really hot behind this mask. I'm sorry. I know I'm supposed to keep this on, board members and Dr. Talley. I'm very, very hot behind here. And you guys know me. I'm a talker. I love bragging about my program in District 204. But I want you to know that on top of all of the items that we usually sell through the holidays, our kids are continuing to bulk up our card production, our magnets. We have new button makers that we're working side by side with Granger Middle School to produce. We're producing pens, and we are going to have an amazing display for you guys next year come the holiday season. We've received great news, not only last week, but as of yesterday, we will be returning to Walgreens, and we will be returning to Petco this week. Fantastic. And prior to the pause, we were working at the job sites that we could, and I want to mention Blue Co, because Blue Co is one of our parents. It's one of our parent-owned businesses. Mr. Ellig does hire many of our students for paid employment as well as work training employment. And Jack is a product of 204, started in preschool, came all the way through, went to Wabansie Valley High School. He is currently in the STEPS program, and he will be our first student that will be attending a 4-year college, and he will be attending Whitewater University in the fall. Wow. So he's our first STEPS student. I will continue, and I would be very foolish if I don't mention that I've been very fortunate to work with amazing individuals and teams across District 204 at all levels and in all roles. If I don't mention the way that we have creative staff that not only are reaching our kids in person, but remotely as well. And I know that the big emphasis right now is in person, but I want to bring this to everyone's attention. I have staff members every day that put on GoPros, and I've watched them collaborate with preschool, middle school, high school. I've seen this happen through remote learning. It is fantastic. I've watched OTs do it. I've watched PTs do it. I've watched staff go into the new Amazon Fresh, where I almost lost a staff member. She was that good at her job. And they're putting on GoPros, and they're bringing reality and life. And they're buying waffles, and they're purchasing products, and they're making different holiday meals for different cultures and side dishes. And they're making cups of joe 3 ways. Who knew? I'm set on my heavily caffeinated 1 cup of coffee, very large one, a day. 3 cups of coffee for their parents and guardians. They're going to Mariano's. They're going to Jewel. Twice, I've watched my staff members walk across streets the right way with my students leading them through the computer, through Zoom. I've watched this take place. I've also watched staff members grill hamburgers, hot dogs, following student directives. I've watched staff members talk through a GoPro and Zoom to mental health professionals. They've taught them how to use their blue cards. They've had difficult conversations with their parents, friends, and other individuals. I've watched our students engage in person, and I've watched them engage in remote learning. Dr. Seppiel, I've said this to you many times. STEPS doesn't just produce amazing young adults by themselves. It begins with my bookend colleague right here and her preschool team, and every 204 person in between. I just get to be the fortunate one with my staff. We get the result of the amazing young adults. And data shows that the individuals with disabilities most often have very low turnover rates when they go to work. Infrequently, they take days off at work. They have high employer satisfaction rates, high customer satisfaction rates, and they tend to have extremely positive impacts on their coworkers, and they bring teams together. And that's what 204 has always been about. And that's why I'm proud to work in this district, and that's why I'm proud of my bookend, and that's why I'm proud of Dr. Seppiel's leadership in our department. Thank you.
Kim, I'm going to ask for your input, just one more slide. If you could walk us through the pictures that we gathered.
Absolutely. The first slide is our micro business of the COVID kits in the assembly line. We've got Nathaniel Berglund right here, and all photos that are up there have parent permission to be used. Nathaniel is starting our assembly line. He is putting the directives of all the COVID kits and how to use them into Ziploc baggies. The next line, we pack all the assembly, the test tubes. Once they get into the third station, we will use the proper PPE and the sanitary. Nathaniel doesn't use it because the slips of paper are very thin. The TAs are properly stationed all around. And what we do is we put these kits, once they're assembled, there are 3 mini Ziploc bags, 3 test tubes, the instructions, they zip them up, and they are put into big bags of 50. And then once they're in big bags of 50, then we have to divide them per school. Then we have to put them on the bus and in the bins, and then we take care of it per route. And then if you go to the other photos, we've got Emily, Daniela, and it looks like Christian Simon down there, and they have a script. They go into each building, elementary, middle, and high school. They go to the CEC, they go to Wheatland Academy, they go to the preschool, and they drop off the test tube holder boxes, they drop off the kits, they drop off, they pick up. After that, the other 2 days a week, and they run their routes. They have a very high attendance rate. They do not miss steps on their work days. They go in, they greet, they talk, they handle problems, they collaborate with people in the other buildings, and they are very, 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 very proud of themselves. This is the Uber service, Uber delivery, and they put together COVID kits of 100, and they are absolute rock stars, and they are amazing. And I am so proud that we have the privilege of putting this together for the district and getting us back to school a little bit quicker. Thank you.
Our ESY for 2021 is anticipated to be an in-person instructional model, but we do realize that some students will have conditions that warrant a remote model. We will be prepared to address all learners. We have 2 3-week sessions that run consecutively with an increase in instructional time from last year's 57 hours to 69 hours this year. We anticipate having an equal, if not higher, number of students who qualify this year. Our future goals continue to be a focus on in-person instructional opportunities for our most challenged learners. We also have a math committee that is exploring a consistent alternate curriculum for our learners from the elementary through high school levels. We're currently in the process of reviewing several different resources from vendors. We're also finalizing the workload plan for special education staff. This was work that was nearly finalized last year, but then put on hold due to the pandemic. This plan allows a process of review for those staff that are having difficulty meeting their professional responsibilities and need administrative assistance for problem solving. We anticipate having a finalized document this month. All staff in the Student Services Department have continued to rise to the challenge of meeting the needs of our learners. Although procedural flexibility was not afforded to them at the state or federal level, they continue to provide quality programming and services. Thank you, and thank you to my team members who did outline their programming. Any questions?
Thank you, Christina, Sally, and Cam. Why don't we start with Mr. Rising? Any discussion?
Comment. So I believe, Christina, you had answered a question submitted by a board member. Approximately 55% of our IEP and 504 students have selected remote. Was that correct?
We tend to track the district in that respect.
Okay. Okay. So it's similar to what gen ed kids. Okay.
Yes.
And then, are we trying to, I mean, typically like we would in a normal year, make those connections as best as possible with parents, either the case manager, just to make sure, I mean, I know it's a very unusual and struggling year in general, but are we trying to still make those connections with the parents to make sure that, okay.
Absolutely, and in a lot of respects, we're getting higher parent participation because it is remote and it's convenient for them. They don't have to come into the school for the meetings, so we have had an increase in parent participation. Okay. Absolutely.
And then, so just a quick comment, this, obviously, most of my fellow board members know that our IEP students and 504 students are near and dear to my heart. Before I was on board, I was VP of the Special Needs PTA, and my kids had IEPs. I think all of us, when we shut down a year ago, we're concerned about all kids, but maybe even more so for, our most vulnerable or in some cases, most challenged learners. I'm sure that weighed heavily on all of us. What I can tell our community is we get these presentations in advance, and board members have the opportunity to ask questions of administrators, and that's part of our job as a board member, is to hold the district accountable and make sure that we're aligning, especially with these particular learners. There were over 40 questions submitted by board members. I just counted. So this is very important to all of the board members. And I think it's safe to say that we will continue to monitor this and make sure that our students are getting the services they need and deserve in a most challenging and unusual year. What I will tell the parents who have children with IEPs and 504s, like Dr. CPO mentioned, is please continue to reach out either to your teacher, your support teacher, your caseworker who manages your IEP or 504, or counselor or principal, and be an advocate for your student, and because we want to make sure their needs get met. To Ms. Osborne, Ms. Maloney, I think the world of both of you. Thank you for the work you do. That's it.
Sure. I agree with Mr. Rising. I was intrigued that the early childhood program met weekly with parents. Could you describe maybe how we do that with our elementary, middle, and high school? Because I think communication with our parents, with students with learning challenges is very important. So can you give a few hints or give a few examples in terms of how we're reaching out to our parents on the different levels?
Sure. I think at the elementary level, it is typical for the parents to have to sit with the student, especially I would say, K through third grade are usually less independent in their ability to navigate remote instruction. And so their parents are typically there with them, and that ongoing communication is there throughout. The parents are witnessing what's going on and are helping their child participate. As the students become into the middle school level and high school level, of course, they're more independent with remote, but we do have our case managers and special education teachers reaching out to address issues such as students not responding, or if they have their video off, asking if there's a way that they can at least get them on for a minute or two. So there is that ongoing communication, and again, all of our timelines and procedural requirements as far as our quarterly updates on IEP goals and objectives, our annual reviews, our 3-year reevals, those have all remained in place. So those normal pieces of communication that we have throughout the year have never stopped.
Okay, thank you. And can you just briefly describe how we, with our IEP, each student has an individual educational plan. So how do we adapt for different needs for our students? Are there some students who receive more instruction or different instruction because of their needs?
Yes, so the IEP remains intact and updated annually. And then actually the teachers have been doing double time because they have to do another pseudo IEP, which is the remote learning plan, that is an adaptation of the original IEP that allows for instruction during remote. And so it's not a specific formula, such as we cut it in half or thirds. It's individualized to the needs of that student. So in some cases, it very much resembles the minutes in the IEP, and in other cases, it does not. It really depends on the student, their level of independence, and the nature and severity of their disability. So we do have both of those documents. They're both updated, and when we report out at the annual review, they're both redeveloped and recreated. So it is an awful lot of work for our teachers to do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Karubas.
Sure. I have a question on the ESY. Is a student automatically enrolled in an ESY if they have an IEP, or does the parent talk to the teacher and principal and get them enrolled? How does that work?
So ESY is an individual determination made by the entire IEP team. And what they do is they look at data over periods of time in which the student was not provided instruction. It's not specific to remote. So the typical data points are, the student didn't have an instruction over winter break, spring break, long weekends, and they look at the level of review that student needs when they come back, kind of a regression recoupment factor. Those are the first things that we look at. And we say, if they've been away from school for a while, do we have to start all over again, or are they a little bit rusty, or do we need to, somewhere in between? And then that's what we consider when we think, all right, what are they going to be like over the summer? Will they lose skill? Will they not be able in the fall to, pick up where they left off after a brief refresher like all students have? And those are the data points that we look at: winter break, spring break, long weekends, and holidays. And then that team decides on an individual basis whether the student qualifies for extended school year. So it's not a matter of just signing up for it. And then they determine what services do we give over extended school year. If the student has related services, then they say, well, does the student, as an example, need speech, a continuation of that or not? But what about their reading support? What about their math support? And so all of the components of their IEP are discussed at that meeting, and then they develop some guidelines for what needs to be addressed during ESY.
So the 2 sessions of 3 weeks each, is it 2 sessions for each student, or is it one session, like one batch and then a second batch?
It's 2 3-week sessions. It's for the majority of students. They qualify, if they're qualifying for ESY, they're qualifying for all 6 weeks. We made it 2 3-week sessions because we do know that some parents, nobody traveled last summer, but there is a possibility that people may be traveling. So if a family shares with us that they only want 3 weeks, we didn't want to overstaff the program. We also wanted to offer that same opportunity to our staff who may also be traveling. So maybe if 2 staff wanted to job share a position, they could do that. If they weren't available for all 6, but they were willing to do 3, we would welcome them to do 3. So it was both for the traveling and the needed time off for both students and staff.
Okay. And I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Maloney and Ms. Osborne for all you do.
Thank you. Okay.
Something that you brought up, but I wanted to ask about the remote learning plans. That was not something that was mandated by the state. That was something we chose to do, correct?
That was something that the state board had suggested that we do. There were templates put out for our use, and we used that. We continue to use that for students that have a remote component to their instruction. If they are in, such as the students in the STEPS program, some of those students will not have a remote learning plan because they're no longer remote.
Right.
It's an effort to document also the delivery of a free, appropriate public education during this time.
Okay. Right. Thank you. My other question is, so you guys are, you bring so much, and it's so much energy. So I'm wondering, what are some things you have learned from this experience that you're sitting here going, we got to continue something, or we want to keep doing this part of whatever it is we've had to do at this point?
I'm going to jump in and tell you that I think one of the things that we did this year was our SEL connections with families. Those weekly supports that we were doing is something that I would love to try to bring into next year. It was really beneficial for the staff to get to know the parents that way, as well as the parents to have that connection on a regular basis with the team members. So for me, that was something I feel like we need to figure out how to do that next year.
Awesome. And I know for some of our students really do well having 1 or 2 days at home and then bringing some of those skills back the very next day. And we switched to a block schedule in the mornings, and we have teachers that are working together and collaborating more in and out. So I noticed that our communication amongst us, due to this process, has been a lot more teaming. And my teachers are just coming up with fantastic collaboration together across our pathways, where they're aligning different eco tools together and breaking down small skills throughout the related services department, as well as through case managing and different types of goals that are in the IEP plans for all students, which is awesome, because we're hitting all of the post-secondary outcomes. And we can hit them not only in asynchronous learning, but also when kids are right in front of us in the synchronous. So it's just, this has been a very, very positive, real life experience for our students, our young adults, and for the STEP staff.
Awesome.
I think we'll also continue the video conferencing for annual reviews and evaluations. It's much more convenient for parents. They don't have to travel, they don't have to take off work or leave their home as often or as much. And I think it's just become a very convenient way, and the participation has risen due to that. So I think that that's probably something that will, as an outcome, will continue on.
Yeah. That wasn't something that had to be okayed by the federal government or anything to do that.
No, that was actually in the Illinois Administrative Code to begin with, but everyone just thought, well, it was just an unused component. A conference call was most frequently used, but the Zooming is turning out to be a nice thing for annual reviews and such.
I mean, it does, especially the special ed. I think students are so different and, in different settings. So I'm hoping that there will be some time for heads to get together and be able to pull these wonderful things that came out of this horrible experience for so many people, that we can actually go forward with some new tools. So thank you very much for all your work and everything you guys do.
Thank you. Ms. Deming?
First, just to say to Sally and Kim, thank you so much for all that you do. It's amazing what you've been able to accomplish and your staffs have been able to accomplish this year. And kudos to staff, to parents, and obviously to our students. And just wonderful. Christina, thank you for your leadership. Sally, I just wondered really quickly, as we look at as our preschool at Indian Prairie, do we see some of the same things going on, coordinations with our other preschools at the other buildings?
I think I need to, I didn't quite hear what the question was.
Are some of the same things that sorry, I can hear it now, that we're doing at the preschool, is there coordination, or are they getting, do we know where, at our Title I schools where we're having preschool, are we seeing any coordination with some of the things that you guys are doing, or is it all the same?
You mean coordination between the district preschool
Yes.
and then preschools in the community?
Mm-hmm. Yes. No, not
within Indian Prairie.
Yes.
Where all the preschool falls under, we're kind of under the same rubric. So
Okay.
all the programming is similar across all the schools at Graham, at the main campus, at our Title I buildings. We all are following the same units of study. We all have kind of the same curriculum that we're using in terms of how we're setting up our rooms. So it's all similar across all those classrooms.
Okay. And Kim, you touch a lot on one of the questions that I had, just how did our students, how did they adapt it this year with, but you touched on a lot of what my main question was, how their adaptation and how they handled things, but it sounds like they just really did phenomenally with the adjustment, because I know sometimes it can be a little, when things aren't as consistent and with that when that change happens, that it can be, can throw things off sometimes for those students.
Yeah, what we found is the students and families that started coming in are the families that remained coming in pretty consistently. We don't have much fluctuation in our numbers. So it's the families that started from the get-go and gradually came in, the more time during the week are still the families that are coming in. And the families that are remote are remaining remote right now through the vaccine, through the end of the year. And then we keep offering, come in, stay remote, come in, stay remote. And it's that communication piece that just is really, it's amazing. It's good stuff this year.
For those that have been remote, have they had a chance to do anything at home from a standpoint of semblance of, that professionalism at all, or?
Absolutely. What we do in the building, we're doing asynchronously as well. It's different, but it's the same benchmarks, it's the same goal. It's all adjusted to the post-secondary goals and their IEP plan through their case managers and related service team. So when we're doing the production or PAYS activities, we're packing up those same supplies, the same kits, the same directives, and we're sending that home as well. That's just one example.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Donnie? Turn on.
Here.
Now? Yeah. So I'm going to echo what everybody else was saying. Thank Thank you all so much. This is such an important population in our district. Not that any student isn't important, but we understand the vulnerable nature of the students that you work with, and they also are near and dear to my heart. And I was thrilled to death to see the COVID testing involve the STEPS students, because that was just a very cool connection. And you know, in hard times, it's nice to see something really positive like that come out and, you know, give them another skill to work on. So I really appreciated that. I just have a question. Like, if you compare to a normal year, how would you compare the amount of parental interaction you have this year versus in a normal year? Is it much greater, or?
Yes, there are many more check-ins, whether scheduled or unscheduled, and teachers are very cognizant of students' participation and are reaching out when they feel like, you know, they're not even when they're lost. Way before that, they're reaching out to say, I called on your daughter today and she didn't respond. Is everything okay? I mean, the level of communication, and I would imagine that is, in addition to the paperwork and reporting aspect, that is also has become a new and increased responsibility for our staff, is that increased level of communication. But I would say absolutely that it's at a higher level.
Thank you for the presentation. My quick comment would be, in looking at it from a board level, I think each of your skills, experience, energy, fit your roles exactly. I could see how where you're at in the district is where you should be, and I appreciate the experience and energy and skills that you bring to each of those roles. So thank you. Anything further, guys? All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a discussion on legislative advocacy updates. I've got 2 items: Naperville generation tables and House Bill 1782. Mr. Rising, you have 2 items. Anything else? Okay, let's go around then. Mr. Rising?
I'm not sure if you were going to mention this, Mr. Krubis, but since I didn't hear it, the first thing was the Citygate West development, I believe, is on the March 16th City Council agenda. I'm sure you'll talk more about that. The other thing I wanted to briefly mention is today I submitted on behalf of the board to the Illinois Association of School Boards a proposal for Share Your Success presentation at the 2021 Joint Annual Conference, which is Illinois Association of School Board Conference, in addition to the Illinois Association of School Administrators and School Business Officials. Our presentation with feedback from board members had a great title that Ms. Grover gave me, Forming Intergovernmental Agreements as a Protection from TIFs, and went through and presented our outline, structure, things that board members, superintendents, administrators can take away from the presentation. They evaluate these, and then they let us know by the end of April if we will present in November. So, and I sent you all a copy of it. There were a couple typos in the copy I sent you. I made those corrections before I submitted it, but so you have the rough final draft. But thank you again for all your comments, and I think it'd be good information to share with the state and other school boards. So, thank you.
Yeah, that is exactly right. So we're taking our time to take something that we did innovatively and trying to educate other districts about the process and how they can take advantage of it. So that's,
yeah, and just one more thing. I mean, what we did in protecting our taxpayers and our parents assets and the school district revenue for our community. As was quoted by our attorney, the agreement that we got was unprecedented in the state. Something great that we did together as a board in collaboration with administration and legal, and I just think so many school districts will benefit from that, especially coming out of the post-pandemic world where there's going to be possibly state funding issues, municipality issues with shortage of sales tax and so on and so forth. So
good. Ms. Grover, Ms. Peel, Ms. Deming, Ms. Donahue.
Okay, so I attended the LEND meeting last week, which had a lot of interesting information about the state of activity in the downstate. So they said they had over 4,000 bills presented at the House and 600 in the Senate. So lots and lots of activity, and there were many different areas of education that possibly could be a topic of discussion. But they did say that evidence-based funding looked to be flat. And there are a couple of bills that are percolating out there. HB 273, which is on vouchers for school districts that don't offer full in-person learning. And also HB 40, which was could be very impactful, which actually relates to the talk that we just heard about the STEP students and extending that program to the 22nd birthday, which sounds conceptually good, but is expensive and has other issues associated with other insurance. So there's a lot going on and a lot to continue to pay attention at the state level for us. So
good. Thank you for doing that. The two that I want to talk about are the Naperville generation tables and HB 1782. We're continuing to work with the city of Naperville to change its generation tables, which would change the impact fee, for new development, which would increase the amount of revenue to the district for new development. The process is laid out in the Naperville ordinance. There's going to be a meeting with all interested parties where they can comment, the developers can comment. The next step will be the Planning Commission, and if it is successfully out of the Planning Commission, then it goes to the City Council. Passage is not guaranteed in any of this, so board members should continue to be engaged with interested parties to advocate for the passage of it. We've already approved the change in the generation tables. Now we need to assist with trying to get them changed with the city. Our administration is continuing to work with the city of Aurora to do the same. It's on a different time scale. Any questions on that? HB 1782. This has to do with the food service legislation. You might have seen some recent news on it. In an effort for the district to be fiscally responsible, we outsource certain services, including transportation, custodial services, and food service. Food service in schools is governed by the National School Lunch Program and Illinois, if you choose to be in the National School Lunch Program. It's governed, the National School Lunch Program has flexibility, certain parameters to evaluate the food service, including taste, menu, per meal price. Illinois requires us to accept the lowest responsible bidder, which doesn't always coincide with taste and menu. And so what happens is sometimes the lowest responsible bidder will bid low to get a contract and then make changes in the quality of food that is given moves from fresh fruit to canned fruit, changes the menu so that items that we thought were going to be on the menu aren't. So this legislation would allow us to bid with certain bidding requirements that gives us a little more flexibility that mirrors what is done at the federal level, so that we could basically put in kind of like bidding requirements that allow us to do taste tests and whatnot. So it's legislation that I think we should support. The question is how we should support it, whether we want to do a resolution, whether we want to just advocate with local legislatures, where we want to branch out to maybe other districts that are doing it. Looking at the legislatures that have signed on for it, we have Miss Stava Murray and Miss Yang Rowe from formerly of 203. So we do have some, there's others, local legislatures that we could contact and see which ways we can assist with it. It's definitely something that impacts us because we outsource our food service. It's not in-house. So we are required to bid, and this will give us the most flexibility. So,
is this in the beginning stages, Mr. Krubis? Is it just, has it been even through first or second reading? Or
no, it's
through
still in the Rules Committee. It
Okay.
might be done. We've got 2 months until it's legislative session is over. But I don't think this is going to be something that's one and done. Like, it might take a year and a half to pass, but it might be something we want to put our stamp to. It's definitely in the interest of the school district to get behind.
Yeah, I mean, I've got no problem with that if you're looking for action from the board, but also because it's so early and so young, you know as well as I do, those things get tweaked and spun many different directions before they even get through first, second, and third readings. With given so many bills and so many that are related to education, maybe we should, and just a suggestion, but focus on the ones that seem to be fastest moving as possible, that would have the biggest impact, because it's going to be hard enough to probably just keep abreast of those alone. So
I can appreciate that we only have so much energy and political capital to explore, but there's really no downside to getting behind this. The question is the degree. We could pass a resolution, or we can go down to Springfield and try to testify. So there's a spectrum here of involvement. And we're just discussing it tonight. So any comments?
I like the idea of a resolution. Given what you're saying, it could take a little more than a couple months here. It could take a year or so. And I think it sends a good message that we have cared about the quality of the food. We've been through where we've heard enough negative aspects of it sometimes, that we're in a good place right now, and I think we'd want to carry on in that tradition of focusing on healthy, good food that tastes that kids like, So I think it's a good message for the board to do that, and a resolution is. You can write those up in your sleep.
I finished it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can involve, I think, at least other stakeholders in our district to just educate, the other IPPC and PTAs that say that, look, this is an issue that we're dealing with.
I'm not saying this isn't important.
Yeah.
I'm just saying there might be other ones that could have a far bigger impact.
Yeah, I can appreciate your point, but resolution isn't much. What do
we have to vote on it or something?
This is just discussion, so we have no action. So this is basically, is there a consensus, and then we could bring something on the.
I like the idea. I like the idea of a resolution.
Okay. Ms. Deming?
I'm good with the discussion. I like Member Peel's comments.
Okay. Ms. Grover?
No, I like the resolution. I think we don't think about food until the food becomes bad at school, and then the kids are like, this food sucks. So to maintain the good food we have. And I know what we do have, what I really like about it is you can pick and choose, like if you have allergies and things like that. So who knows
Yeah.
if the other
Kathy, what have
organizations
we
may
been
have
through,
that.
3 or 4 food vendors?
I think it's only been 3.
Yeah.
We had,
Sodexo,
yeah, we
Airmark.
had them for a very long time. So it was
And
a
I-
big move.
And I do think it's an important one because, you know, especially with our students who have food challenges. And we want our kids to eat well with what they are eating in school. So I do like the idea of potentially having flexibility.
Thanks for drafting that, Ms. Grover.
Sure.
Well, since we're on that topic, then I think we should also consider ones from some other ones, like Ms. Donahue mentioned with vouchers and things like that, too.
Okay, I think
So,
we've got to,
yeah.
we got to get kind of there's too many. So we have to, maybe 2 of us can get together and try to whittle it down to like a top 3 or something, because we're not going through 9,000 bills.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you take the lead on that. That's all I have. The next agenda item is Board of Education update. I've got nothing further on that. Mr. Rising, is he still around? Mr. Razak?
Yes, I'm still here.
Do you want to add anything on legislative advocacy or Board of Education update?
No, the only thing I would say is I agree with the resolutions. We have to be careful that we don't have a million. I think it's important that the board continues to be advocates to the legislature on things that are important to us. So I agree with that venue, that plan of action. And the only Board of Education update that I had was Mr. Rising's fine work with submitting the proposal to IASB.
Yeah, thank you very much.
That's all I
Mr.
got.
Rising for that.
Nice job.
That was really good.
Yeah, definitely. Big lift. And we actually have to do the presentation though, too.
Oh, he'll do just fine.
Yeah. Anything else for this evening? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.